Does any, I think rather than sort of do it the way we've been, let's just do the motion, do the second, and then if someone wants a piece pulled off or wants to discuss a piece, we'll do it then. So do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Is there anything someone wants taken off? Is there anything that anybody wants to discuss? Anybody? Nobody's muted. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay. All right. The next thing is Moody's Investor Service. Who's gonna lead that?
So I can cue that up. So that's every year we get reevaluated by Moody's. So we are really an excellent rating. We're AA2, and what happens is Moody's goes ahead and they come in and they reevaluate our end of the year financials from the previous year, and basically they're telling investors whether or not we are still a good investment for if we go to bond. So we have maintained our AA2 with a couple of good comments there, and they acknowledge that we are in a very high quality credit position, and one that's slightly stronger than the school district median of a AA3. So that bodes well for us, and when we go to do a large scale capital project, if we can maintain this credit rating, we will get amongst the best rates that are available to us.
Very good. All right, any questions from Brian or Laura?
You're muted.
You're muted, John.
John, did you?
Got it. Okay.
Yes, I figured out how to unmute. I'm on an iPad today. Does that service cost money, Brian?
We do not get an annual charge. It'll cost us money when we need to go out and bond, and then that's part of our soft costs. It's part of the project.
Okay, understood.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. And the next thing is the BOCES highlights. Read them at your leisure. I assume, does anybody have any comments and or questions that we need to probably send back to BOCES? All right. Where's my board docs? Let's start with the Board of Education, the President and Vice President's report. I will be nice because I've been very discouraged by the state's handling of recent events. The one thing, though, I do want to say is I am thrilled. I am so happy with what our team in Millbrook did to make this happen, to get it done on time, to put themselves at risk, and to be completely ready. I don't really understand what happened with these private companies, these contractors, other than they just didn't understand the magnitude of the job and couldn't deliver. But our team, and like I said, I can't say it enough times, our team of people that got together, put these things together, through all the mistakes by the county and all the other things, and just made it happen on schedule I couldn't be happier. So I'll leave it at that. I'm sorry, and I apologize to the team, sort of, that all that effort just basically now went on hold for a week, but still means that we're ready. That come what may, we're ready. So, all right. Howard, did you have anything that you wanted to say?
No, I think what you said was perfect for the occasion and being nice about it.
Which is really difficult for me, by the way. I also wanted to, one of the things that we're going to bring up with the assistant super report, after last week, or whenever the last meeting was, I think there was some misunderstanding about the transportation budget. So I've asked Brian and Laura to come in and make sure that it's very clear, to do it in public session, so it's very clear to the public as well as the Board of Education what's happening. I do caution you all about, getting to just like asking questions or looking for commentary on contract negotiation, that kind of stuff. We have to go into executive session to do, but I wanted to make sure that if there was any misunderstanding, that it was clarified. So we'll come back to that, but I wanted to put that out for you guys.
Perry, can I interrupt you for a second? Because this is such an important meeting and we are talking about the budget and stuff, I'm still looking on the website for it and I can't find it. So if anybody is trying to listen, there's no link to get on. Cheryl, you're muted. Cheryl, you're muted.
Cheryl?
There you go.
Okay. So the link is on the agenda and I sent Carrie a text to put the Zoom link, which is normally always there. I haven't checked it myself, but on the front page, should be right on the home page.
So Cheryl, why don't you share your screen and then just show where, be careful what's on your computer, but share your
Yeah, I know.
screen. And
So I'm
I
using,
do see it.
just,
I see
and
it.
just point to it.
It's the third item down.
yeah, I'm on multiple screens here, so I don't know how to
Okay,
do
all
multiple
right.
screens. Sorry.
Hold on. So I go into meeting agenda.
No, you just go to the
No.
website,
Just go to the website.
Okay, I'm on there right now.
third item down, and then just click that.
Oh, budget and voting information, class website.
Live stream of June 9, 2020 board meeting.
Click home. Make sure you're on the home page.
Right, you need to be on the home page.
Class website. Law, there, it wasn't there before. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it, perfect. All right. Hayden,
All right.
go watch me now.
All right, so superintendent's report?
A few items. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all, as always. Just a few items, really important. Tribute to some folks that we lost and that we love dearly. Ray Butler. And so with a heavy heart, we inform you that Ray passed away. He's a custodian at Elm Drive. He died on Sunday, May 31st. He was reported to be in district for 22 years and is remembered as a gentle and friendly person who took pride in his work and was helpful to students and staff alike. We are all very profoundly saddened of his passing. And also we lost Steve Bracey. He worked as a bus driver for First Student and he died at home last week. I was told that he started at First Student in 2007 and was just a really good guy. And there are lots of nice stories that people were sharing. And one of them was that he dressed up as Santa Claus every year for students at Cardinal Hayes home, and he was loved by many. So both of them contributed greatly to our community. They showed a lot of love, and there's a lot of love that's being sent to their families and to them both for all of their good work and dedication to our kids and community.
Well, and I think this was a tremendous shock to everyone, from the board to you know, people that worked with Ray and Steve to the people that, you know, just knew them. Our condolences go out to the families of Ray and Steve. And, you know, it's just, it was just a shocking thing. Anyway, sorry, Laura, I didn't mean to interrupt, but.
You're absolutely right on every count. The next item that I wanted to speak to was the district's response to social injustice. It was the parent communication that we sent out over the weekend in response to the violence and hate and racism that's been happening in our states, in our local and global communities. And I first wanted to say that my heart and our heart and love goes out to the families and friends of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Tony McDade, and the many other Black Americans who have lost their lives due to hate and violence. And what I wanted to do is share that the purpose of our initial messaging, and I want to share that with the board and with the public and our families, was to acknowledge that social injustice that exists in our current world and to support the rights, to acknowledge the social injustice that exists in our current world and to support the rights of our students to stand for what they believe in. As we all know, and we all know well, that efforts to dismantle systemic racial inequity requires thoughtful and strategic coordination and collaboration in planning to ensure effectiveness, viability, and sustainability. I want you to know that Millbrook Central School has already been deeply involved in this work, and not in reaction to what has been going on currently, but has been doing this work for a while and has made some significant steps in an effort to gain momentum. And Caroline, if you don't mind, just speaking to some of the steps that have been made, and I think you'll be very proud of that we're trying to stay ahead of it and not be reactionary.
You're muted, Caroline.
So on May 19th, the Board of Education adopted the superintendent's proposed budget for the 2020-2021 school year. That included money aimed at professional development in the area of equity. A review of the school district data showed an overrepresentation of students of color in our special education programs and in suspension data. So we made a commitment to correct this inequity, and we've been meeting with consultants to identify programs that will work to educate the leadership team, the staff, and to also improve supports for our students. Working with consultants to educate our team and staff on global perspectives of cultural responsive education and addressing true equity for all of our students has been our primary focus in preparation for next year and in the coming years. We'll also eventually do a deep dive into curriculum reviews through cultural responsive framework from NYU Steinhardt. The K-8 teachers even have some recommended read aloud books waiting on my shelf for when they return. Unfortunately, they arrived here after our teachers were sent home due to the school closures. Additionally, several members of the leadership team have engaged in training opportunities about the impact of trauma on our students and will be better prepared to respond to trauma reactions in the educational setting. As we know, many of our students who have experienced adverse childhood experiences, such as racism, poverty, and death or incarceration of loved ones, and food insecurity, carry an invisible backpack with them to school every day. A lot of coping skills that students use are about trying to maintain a sense of power and or security. So things like being hypervigilant of their surroundings or being in survival mode are brought with them every day into school. Those behaviors don't necessarily work well in the classroom and lead to coping behaviors that teachers witness, like difficulty focusing, slow skill development, and disruptive behaviors that may lead to those suspensions. Additionally, we are also working to bring our numbers of students with disabilities that are represented in our suspension data down by focusing on the research of Dr. Ross Green, who established a system of collaborative and proactive solutions. This will provide us with the knowledge and resources to work toward collaborative problem solving with our students to help extinguish behavior. Ross Green's work actually focuses on the lagging skills and unsolved problems that students have and doesn't focus necessarily as much on the types of behavior, but why the behaviors are occurring in the first place. So this differs from a system that leverages disciplinary practices and can often lead to students feeling marginalized and less connected to their school community. This further encourages disciplinary infractions in the future. This actually focuses on systems that help to arm students with the skills that they need to navigate life's demands of them, and helps to mitigate further behaviors, and therefore closing those skills gaps to help students to be able to perform and engage in their education. All of these efforts will take years to take root, and we know, but we have to start with these steps sooner to get to where we want for all of our students to have an equitable access to their education.
Thank you. Thank you. So getting back to some other things, Executive Order 202.39, school budgets, as you were talking about, Perry, and board elections, the deadline has been extended. Governor Cuomo signed that executive order. It extends the deadline to receive ballots by mail until June 16th at 5 p.m. It was supposed to be this evening. And so our meeting would have looked very different. We wouldn't have had Cheryl here. And I would have been trying to figure out Zoom for all of you. Scary thought. And districts are prohibited from accepting hand delivery of ballots after June 9th at 5 p.m. So we are waiting to hear. There are some rumors and buzz around a second vote option, but we're just waiting for guidance as usual. So, and just a few shout outs. I wanted to shout out Rick and his team and the many people who participated in the car parade. They delivered lawn signs to all of our seniors. So we have 64 seniors, I believe. And we probably traveled about 120 miles delivering all of them. I've decided that I probably should have put car washes in my contract from traveling all of these dirt roads, but it's been wonderful, a great journey for all of us. A quote from a parent: "I just wanted to thank the entire Millbrook team that came around today and handed out signs to the seniors. She was so surprised. The energy and enthusiasm and the amount of participation were beyond amazing. You guys killed it. It's definitely a moment none of us will forget. I can't watch the video without crying. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart." This is how we're changing lives, both in small ways and great ways. The middle school, high school art students, they have a showcase. Knowing that they could not don the hallways of the high school with their artwork, they have created a platform for us to view this artwork. There's a virtual art exhibit that they're showcasing: studio, advanced art, contemporary art and sculpture, IB art year one, and independent art. I will send you the link. We'll also post it on our website, but there is some amazing product, and kudos to Michelle Kring, who has been teaching these students and guiding these students in their work. So check it out. And then mark your calendars on this Thursday, 9, 10, 11. We have the Senior Recital, and that is run by Dan Dunninger and his amazing performers. And I have shared the live stream link with you, so maybe you can tune in for a few minutes or the whole time. I think you'll thoroughly enjoy it. They had the rehearsal yesterday, and I'm just always so in awe of our students, who they are, what they do, and how committed they are to whatever they do. So I think you will enjoy that. And lastly, there was, Cuomo had another executive session. What are you laughing at? What?
You're
Yeah,
have a friend.
You're not supposed to have non-board personnel in the room.
Well, he looks bored, or she looks bored.
That's Dia. And lastly, I'm sure you all heard about Governor Cuomo is at it again with changing up the rules. And this one, it's around graduation. So we said June 26th, we could have people in person, up to 150 people. I just want to say that we have no intention of changing the date or the format for various reasons, including that this new rule can easily be revoked. The number 150 restricts us even more, because it's attendees and graduates. Many families have already made their travel plans, and we have police, we have the fire department, we have tons of people who have already committed to this day. We also have sound, camera, and operators booked, scheduled, and contracted. We are not changing things, but there is a rumor that graduates may be able to go across the stage and receive their diploma in person using social distancing practices. So that may put people at ease. So once we have that confirmed in writing, I will let people know, and Eric will let his families know. I think that will make them very happy. So that's all I have to report.
Does that affect any of the other, you know, the moving up ceremony, the honor society, is that specific to seniors graduating, or is it for any sort of, ceremony?
It says graduation updates, but we've been using that as guidelines for our drive-by ceremonies for Alden and for middle school, just to make sure that everybody has the same message. Otherwise, we have different messages. It's confusing. And so mask, social distancing, 10 people in a gathering and no more. And we promise every one of those ceremonies and graduations are going to be super special. People have been planning them for a while. They're going to be memorable. And actually, I have a feeling people are going to want this format, these formats in perpetuity, because they're going to be so exciting and wonderful. So.
Hey, Laura, I have a question. The senior recital, will there be a link to that on the webpage? Maybe there is already. I was trying to look.
There will be a link. I also sent it to you today during the email. So
okay,
and I can resend it because I know everybody.
No, I had internet issues, but
oh,
okay.
Right, yeah. So you'll find it in there.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Laura, have you guys made a decision on who's gonna be part of the graduation committee? Like because I think you guys are only allowed to have 10 people, right?
Correct. So Rick has been working on that, and I added that just a little message to you today. And I know everybody's pretty busy, not checking their email all day, every day, like the rest of us are, because you have other lives and work that you're doing. But the guidelines are 10 people, like you said, so limited board presence, and I think that's a decision you want to make among yourselves. Graduation, there's Alden and middle school, and I don't know if it's our president or
how many spots are available right now? Like what is it?
Right now, I believe it's just one board member for graduation.
Okay.
Because there's administration who's up there, a board member who's there, and then we have some people who are working cameras and operating sound.
Right. Okay.
All right. Anything else, Laura?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Until new rule tomorrow.
Yeah.
I got a question.
Until you're given guidance. Yeah, go ahead.
Laura, why was the message sent to parents? It seems like it's a community kind of, doesn't seem like there's anything really student specific there. Should that be a community? Should it be on the website?
It is it should be on the website now.
I did not see it.
Okay, let me see. That's it. Let me see if we're able to get to it just yet. No, but that's the intention. Thank you, John.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thanks. By the way, thank you for doing that.
Definitely a team effort.
Mm-hmm. And the team.
All right. So why don't we start with on the assistant soups? Why don't we start with Caroline?
So this is a follow-up to the discussion about low enrollment courses at the high school. I color-coded the previous document that was included. It's the same document, but this is color-coded. So the red courses that exist there are courses that, quite honestly, I can't recommend running for the 2020-2021 school year. because there are simply just not enough students. For the math classes, if we were to combine them, we could run one section at one level, which would be an HL level course. Or we could make a larger decision to not run any of the year one IB classes, but that essentially would be making the decision to be phasing out the IB program. The yellow classes are year two IB courses, which in bringing back a hybrid model of adding back some of the DCC and Maris classes, we had said that we would do so, but not necessarily at the detriment to any students who had made a first year investment in an IB class. So having said that publicly, I think this needs some input from the Board of Education members. Those are the classes that have the yellow highlights there. And I do want to highlight that specifically the IB Spanish year two, those students may very well end up being combined with other students who are interested in taking that second year class, combined for DCC credit, but we're waiting on approval from DCC. So we are in the process of getting that course syllabus approved to run concurrently with a DCC class for dual enrollment co-seating. So that one may still run as a co-seated class that would have more students in it. It's just as of right now, this is just the IB student course request. So those classes will need further consideration. I did highlight in green the media design and production class. If you look at School Tool, you'll see that the media design and production group for just the year one class is 5 students, year two is 7 students, but that all meets together during one period. So there's actually 12 students. So technically combined, that doesn't meet the requirements for review by the board, but I did want to be honest and put those two course selections separately for your review, although together they don't necessarily need to be reviewed because they all do meet within one period. So my recommendation would be to have a discussion about the yellow classes. Those are year two classes, and to have a discussion about the program year one. And the one decision to be made is if we are going to phase out the IB program, making that decision first before being able to consider what will be done with that math class. Something to consider is that upon further review of course selections, the only classes that had course selections above 10 in all of the IB program year one were business class, which had 11 students, the history of the Americas course that had 13 students. When I looked at that class closely, there were students who had been included in those course selections, but many of them had been recommended by the teacher, but hadn't necessarily selected that class themselves. When you compared that their first and second selections, they had for their own course selections put down US history, but had been included in the course selections by the teacher. So given the opportunity to take a US history class, they may very well not end up enrolling in that History of America's course anyway. So my guess is that we may end up having that conversation down the road in August or September, early September, August board meeting. So in truth, we have IB Business, which is an elective class, and Environmental Systems, which would require at this point having someone trained to teach it. And that has 19 seniors and 1 junior requesting that class.
So Caroline, I mean, if you take the letters IB off these classes, is there a reason we can't, like the environmental sciences class, that we couldn't just, if we had a teacher trained, of course, that we couldn't just teach environmental science and not just take the 2 letters off? I'm not saying we should, I'm just asking sort of, can we do that, or does IB sue us because we're, teaching one of their courses? Because I mean, if I understand it correctly, we have nobody interested in an IB diploma.
Correct.
And so far in the history of IB, we've got one person that got it, right? I think. And it doesn't seem to be something that's generating excitement. I didn't see the parents coming out of the woodwork to keep IB, keep IB. I didn't, I'm trying to figure out, and it's not something we need to like close on tonight, but why would we, can you tell me why we would keep IB given its current sort of condition, or is it something we need to do so much more with? I don't know. I really don't understand. I think that, some of the IB stuff like capping courses and, like I'll call it a summary class, are great things. Teaching IB environmental sciences, I think, is phenomenal. But to put those two letters in front, I'm struggling to see why we're,
Yeah, I want to be able to make those arguments and tell you all the reasons why, but the fact of the matter is the program as it is has many reasons to defend, but if the students aren't going to enroll in it and take advantage of it, it's not going to serve the purpose here. So, I mean, that's the issue, right?
Well, and it also seems as though it's not like we're trying, the first year we had 5 and the second year we had 6, and it seems like the first year people gave it a shot, and then from there it's basically, I don't want to do it. I mean, and I know I'm being like ridiculously summarized and ridiculously flip on the point, but I mean, that's what I mean. If there's something there that we're just not getting, or is it?
The numbers aren't there. I mean, that's the reality, and I wish that the reality were different, because I love the mission of the IB. I love many things about the IB. I wish that it were different. I mean, I came into the district when the IB was already in process. I've attended many trainings on the IB. I helped usher the IB program in. I think the staff believes in the IB. I think the staff would love to keep the IB, but I'm not sure where the rubber meets the road, why it's not happening.
Do you feel, can I ask, do you feel students are very aware of what the IB program is about? I mean, they're very well informed. Do we do the thorough job to describe what the choices are?
I think that they've done more this year in terms of having an assembly and trying to explain what each and every course is about.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've done more this year than they have in the past, even to try and explain, especially to the incoming juniors, about what each of the courses is about. The students who had to make these decisions had the opportunity to hear what each and every course would be about.
Okay.
So
that's good to know.
I want to ask 2 questions. Caroline, how many students are actually graduating this year with an IB diploma?
There's 2 students that would be eligible for the IB diploma that did the full coursework.
Okay.
And IB diploma is the honors?
That's the full complement of coursework.
You said they're eligible, so is it confirmed that they will be getting it, or is it there's still testing that has to be done because they may not get it?
Well, they would have to complete their core, which is the creativity activity service, their extended essay, and the TOK project.
So are they on track to do that, or they are? Okay.
Yeah.
Just remember though that we had 7 kids come to a board meeting. We're all on track to get the IB diploma, and I think one of them got it, or did any of them get it? Caroline?
Yeah. They had, and we had others who had their scores reviewed as well.
So what was the final tally?
I would have to check with, I don't want to misspeak. I would have to check on that.
So tonight, you
'Cause
asked.
I actually thought it was 2 who had gotten it, and
So tonight I ran into a mom whose daughter graduated last year, and she had the IB diploma. I believe the IB diploma. She applied to 2 different schools. One school took the IB diploma, and unfortunately the other one didn't take anything at all. She unfortunately didn't go to the school that took the IB diploma, so she didn't take any credits with her when she went to the new school. So I think that's where the kids are starting to, and the parents, I think, are starting to pay attention. Like they're not all transferable. And it's just what I heard tonight. I'm just sharing what I heard tonight.
Barry, so,
Go ahead, Tom.
yeah, so it's sort of along Claudia's line, there's only so many students. So if we have 70 students, you only really can offer so many classes. You just do the math. So I'm wondering if it's less about the IB itself and more about, 1, how many students we have, and 2, the parents, I think, made it pretty clear that that they value college credits at the high school level. So I'm wondering if those are 2 obstacles that we just can't overcome, no matter how good the program is. That's I don't know. I don't know for sure, but it seems like those are 2 big factors that are certainly make it challenging to overcome. I don't know how many classes we offer, but if you just divide that by the number of students, it looks like it's going to be pretty hard to, no matter what you're offering, to fill up, get numbers above 10.
So, I mean, I think the board is basically, should we keep going? Should we not? Should we find ways to replace some of the IB courses? And what we need, Laura, is really the recommendation, this is what I think we should do. If IB it has potential, and we can afford it, and we can, we actually get some students interested in it, and you guys are committed to it. Or if you're saying it was an experiment, I don't think we throw it all out. I still personally, I believe that we can capitalize on a lot of the, I'll call it content, and maybe not, and get our kids into physics, but maybe it's a Duchess versus IB. But we need to have, this is what we're recommending going forward. I mean, because there's no one on this, other than Paul, there's nobody on the board that has, the academic training and background that you have. And, as a board, we have to make sure we can afford it, that it fits in with, the overall district. But we need you guys to tell us, and be blunt about it. We think we should do X because, and it will yield this.
yeah, so just to give you a context for comparison, the DCC English class has 23 course selections from seniors. The DCC government class has 22 course selections. The DCC biology class has 18 course selections. The DCC Spanish class, which would combine with that year 2 Spanish class, has 21 course selections.
So Caroline, so what you're saying is there's 21 students in that class, there's 23 students, that's how many signed up for those classes?
Correct.
Can I ask about that? What does a
Those
course
are
selection mean?
Those are
Because
credits, right? They're getting credits for that, Caroline? They're getting college credit?
If they pass
There you
it.
go. There you go.
Can I ask you the definition of course
Well,
selection?
if you can get a certain level.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
can I ask, what does a course selection mean? Because you said that one of the numbers was because a teacher had recommended the student. The student also had a course selection of their own. So are we double counting things or triple counting things or what?
So typically, what happens is students are making their own course selections, and we only have like recommendations from teachers, but then a student is making their own course selections. We had the meetings into whether or not were we keeping IB, were we bringing back DCC classes, what was happening. And then that went into late January. So by the time we started the process to collect course selections and recommendations from teachers, we didn't know what we would even be offering for next year, right? So that was February. And then before you know it, we're being sent home due to the COVID closures. So we had to collect that information virtually. So when we looked at that, we had first and second choices that came from course selections and recommendations by teachers. So when we were looking at those numbers, we have two different numbers that we have to compare one against the other. So some students never entered course selections. We don't have them. So we had to look at what were they recommended for as well.
But you said there was one example where a teacher had a recommendation, yet the student also had a recommendation. So that's a double count.
No, there's one class where there were 13 students recommended for that class. But of those students, some of them who entered their own course selections had preferred US history over that course recommendation.
So how do you count? Do you count both responses?
No, we only counted them once in that 13. Yeah, those students don't necessarily want to take that. So we have both of those numbers.
You know, the other thing, Perry, that you're right.
You know, John, that course is not on this list.
Okay. The other thing is the board does have some say in this because of the fiscal ramifications of these low enrollment courses. So.
Yeah, I said, I mean, it's our job to make sure we can afford it, that it fits in with the overall, you know, district goals and, you know, our goals as a board. But when it comes down to, is English 1 as good as English 2 IB, and is this the same as that? Should we be IB or should we be DCC? You know, unless you guys have some background in this, that's not us. I mean, that's not, we need to get solid recommendations from Laura and her team that says, you know, and I still believe there's some stuff that we should try to salvage. You know, I don't want us to go back to just, well, we take Regents courses and, you know, if I get an 85, I'm cool. I mean, there's a lot of, some of the kids I've met in school that have IB diplomas. These are much better prepared students because they're much more, you know, they think differently because they're trained differently. So maybe some of that stuff, again, I don't want to, you know, get sued by the IB program that we stole their stuff, but, you know, so that's what, and when would we, you know, because we have to make these decisions so that you can make your September scheduling decisions. When does that need to be done?
The sooner the better, because we're going to have to be able to create alternate courses and start letting students know what is not running so that they can make alternate decisions. And then teachers are going to have to plan for whatever classes will be there for them to teach. So in reality, you know, in terms of what will be there curriculum wise, we can call it whatever. If students are concerned about the rigor of the courses, if that is truly the deterrent, it's going to be a deterrent however it's packaged. If it's the name that's the deterrent, then maybe you're right. If we package it differently, rebrand it, and students feel like it's this interesting opportunity, and that's what they're really seeking, then yeah, maybe we will re-engage some students. If it's not tied to internal or external assessments that are scary, maybe that would be an opportunity to re-engage some of the students that have shied away from the, you know, from the program. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure why they're not, engaging. I can tell you that the IB classes that I've sat in are extremely interesting. They're very engaging in terms of the way it's taught. It's taught very differently than some of the other classes that traditional, education in high school you would experience. I don't know. It's very hard to know why. It could be that a lot of these classes are 2 years and maybe they don't want to make a 2-year commitment to anything.
I mean, we need to make a decision one way or another, because right now we have kids that are signed up for a year 2 class because they signed up for a year 1 class that we told them we were going to offer this, 1 and 2, and you can get this out of the way. And now we're right in the middle of saying, well, should we cut year 2? And I don't see how we do that. The only way to logically do all of this is basically don't let anyone else start the program. If we're not going to support the year 2 classes because they're low enrollment, then we shouldn't be putting them in year 1 classes. So
You're saying, Perry, make a
again,
decision.
that's
Perry,
my personal.
You're saying make a decision, Perry, and then like phase it out if we're going to phase it out. Don't offer
If
anything.
that's, and what I'm looking for is a recommendation from Laura and Caroline.
Yeah.
On, is that what we should do?
Well, can I ask one more question about, is it possible you narrow the offerings down and people would maybe go to another offering where there's a higher density kids? Or this is the only way to do it?
We already did some of that.
Okay.
And we can't narrow down year 2 because those kids can't get credit at this point. If
No,
we put them anywhere else, I mean,
you have to take a 2-year class. Okay.
yeah, they had to take year 1 to take year 2.
I mean, the thing is, let's make a simple cost analogy here. Let's say somebody's paid $70,000, $80,000, and there's benefits and there's retirement expenses, stuff like that, contributions. And so maybe your average teacher's 100, say the load's 125,000. You divide that by 5 classes, you got $25,000 a class. So you divide that by how many kids are in there. You got 1 to 5, and you're paying some good money. You're paying $25,000 to put a class on. So, and there's quite a few of them, so there is a cost to these things. And there could be some folks that say, 1 to 2 kids is pretty much, that's, pretty going overboard there. But I understand what you're saying. Second year.
Caroline, Caroline, in the past, when there has been in their senior year, I'm going to use the top one, for example, the, let's say IB language and literature year 1. There's no incoming juniors, but there's 3 seniors that want to take that class. In your past, juniors that have gone up to the senior year have, if it was 3 that started out at this time, how many of those continued for the entire year? Did all 3 stay in it, or did they couldn't do it, they dropped out halfway through or quarter way through? If 3 started, just 3 finished? Like that's a.
So previously, so that, like, for example, the IB year 2, that class was larger year 1, but some of those students dropped and went to the DCC bio course because prior to this current year, we had not made it necessarily set in stone that if you started the program, you had to stick with it. But we had made it known for this year, the 1920, that if you started an IB course in the 2020-2021 school year, in your junior year, that you had to make that commitment for the 2 years, because we weren't going to start it and then have that happen. Because we were bringing back DCC classes and Maris classes, we were concerned of that, of that exact same thing, that if we were phasing in other classes, that those things were going to happen.
And you may have said it, and I do apologize, I don't remember. How many of this upcoming senior class are going for their IB diploma?
2.
2. And this year, only 2 graduated this year. Will graduate with it.
Assuming that they complete their projects.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so Well, I mean, there's sort of there's two sides to this. Do we phase out? I mean, we've been talking about this for, months. Do we phase out IB? I mean, that's to me, that's a simple question of, can we afford to do this? It sounds as though, and Caroline, tell me if I'm misunderstanding. It sounds as though it has some good content, but from a value standpoint, 2 kids out of every year getting an IB diploma, are we really an IB school? So I'd like to hear from board members. What do you think? I mean, should we phase this thing out? And I don't mean like, shut it down. I mean, take care of our commitments to the kids that have spent their time and worked so hard to get this done. But once they're through, let's, or do we go back to the drawing board and try to fix it? So Claudia, what's your thoughts?
I think that it should be phased out only because I think it's, fair to the kids that have gone this far. I think that they should be allowed to finish out. Especially, I mean, I look at the French 5 honors. I mean, I know there's only 2 kids in there, but since they've been doing it since their secondary school, I mean, I think to be fair to them, I think they should be able to finish it out. I don't think, I don't think it should be next year. I don't think there should be IB next year. I think this should be the last of it and move on. And I mean, look at the enrollment that we're already seeing that, Caroline said for the DCC classes now. I mean, it just seems to be that the kids are going in that direction. But it's not fair to these kids currently that want to finish out their schooling. There's this coming up seniors. I think they should be allowed to finish it. But maybe they can combine. I don't know, but some of these classes, maybe they can combine something. I don't know.
Okay, Tom?
Did you say Tom, Perry?
Yeah.
I don't want to sit here and make the decision myself. I want to, like you said, I want to have Laura and Caroline tell me what they think should be done. I'm not the expert in it. I know going into the IB, I was just, I know in my head, you've got a certain amount of students, you can offer a certain amount of classes, and and I'd start with that and see just how diverse of a curriculum you can really offer. And, because you look at here and, there's, if you use John's example of $25,000, you're looking at $300,000 worth of teacher salary committed to a very small group of students. So I don't think that's something that's sustainable, whether that means getting rid of IB. I'm a bigger fan of getting rid of college credits in high school myself, but I don't think that's happening. So
that's a good point, Tom. I mean, what is your recommendation, Laura? Is it, phase it out or fix it?
Well, I've been here for 5 years. I mean, 5 months. It's been about 5 years. And at risk of, becoming, being a new leader that puts a kibosh on a program that people really invested time and money. Also, since I've been here, this has been a topic that's been raised over and over again, whether we're keeping IB or whether we're not keeping IB. I believe that IB, its philosophy, content, and the practices that teachers use for teaching and learning are things that we want to continue doing, whether it's an IB program or a local elective or another class. We'd like to continue those practices because I think they add a lot of value to teaching and learning. It also has been this uphill, it's been a battle to keep the enrollment up. It's been extremely low. Seems to me that it should phase out, but making sure that we're not losing those really important components and finding ways to embed them in other options that we're giving kids, such as that environmental, that IB environmental. Caroline and I have spoken about it, and Caroline shared, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it could become a local elective. And so we would be able to provide that as an option for kids. It seems like they're really interested in that topic. So why not remove the IB with the hope that we can use that content, pedagogy, and philosophy in that class. I think that the college credits outweigh IB over and over again. Families are looking for those college credits. And so that seems to be beating down IB as well. There are considerations to make when phasing out. We have those students that everybody's mentioning that will need that second year. So there will be a phase out process. My recommendation would to be phase it out. And I'm saying that with the hope that I have all the information I need to make an informed decision. Because I know that a lot of money, time, effort went into making IB, and bringing IB into the school district. So I want to make sure that those teachers and those administrators and the board members who found great value in it and committed to trying this is mentioned, noted, and acknowledged. But to Tom's point, it's a small district, and we don't have enough kids to fill our courses, and IB doesn't seem, for whatever reason, connecting with our kids.
Would you say over 2 years, Laura? Phase it out over 2 years? Or is that what you're leaning towards? Or you?
I think that makes sense if I have the correct information.
Yeah, I would think.
Students that need that second year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're not letting you off the hook. I mean, all the stuff that the teachers have done to improve their classes, we expect you're going to keep doing that, even if we drop the IB label.
So 2 years means opening it up for the juniors this year? Is that what you're saying?
No, I believe just phasing out those who we have made promises to. We have to honor that second year for some students.
So it's one more year. At the end of next year, there's no IB. Is that what you mean?
That's what I'm recommending.
Yeah, fine. Also, we can't forget that the class sizes are coming at the high school are going down population-wise. It's shrinking still a little bit more coming at us in the years to come. So it's going to be even harder to maintain. So I think
at some point, I mean, Tom's point about college credits, at some point we really have to think that through too, because do we become you do your transition from 8th to 9th grade and then you're a Duchess student, and you know what I mean? I think
there could be more AP. You could bring back more AP.
Yeah, no, I'm saying I think that's like the next step. If that's what the board wishes to do and that's what the district is recommending we do,
Yeah.
I think we need to then take a look at AP and Duchess and whatever else. So
Great.
Caroline, you suddenly went quiet. Are you okay with that? Does that make sense?
I'm totally fine with that. I feel like we can have discussions about the value and rigor of the IB program. I've attended multiple IB trainings. I think it's some of the best professional development I've ever gone to. And that's something that can never be taken away from our teachers. So I think it's amazing opportunities for learning for their own practices. And, I just feel like the community has spoken, right? We're here to serve our students. Our students are not engaging in these opportunities. It's unfortunate. It makes me sad. I did a lot of this work. And, I don't want to put Brian on the spot, but there's a lot of other annual fees that go along with this program. It's not just teaching salaries. So,
Okay.
there's a lot of what's just here on paper, and there's a lot of other stuff. So,
Okay.
I mean, I get it.
Yeah. So Jen, what do you think?
When Tom was talking, I felt the same exact way. I don't feel, equipped well enough to make that decision. I would definitely, seek out the administrative, their guidance. I, along with everyone else, I'm sure want to see these other kids finish. There's just so many things to weigh in, I feel like some of the parents that came in, I guess it was either this year or last year, I felt like there was a lot of importance placed on the fact that when their kids could take the DCC courses and things like that, what it brought the kid, what it went with the kids to college with, and then there was like the financial component to the parents. So, you know, like that's something that, you know, we can't control, you know, that parents want to send their kids to school or to college for just 3 years because it saves them money. You know, that's an important part of it. But I also, you know, I think there a lot of hard work. I wasn't around for it, but I do think a lot of hard work went into it. And at first, I don't want to see it go. I think it would be great. And if it could be explained differently, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. I would just hate to see it go because it sounds so incredible. Unless there was that component where our teachers can carry a lot of that with us or with, you know, with them. You know, I just think my daughter's 6. By the time she gets to high school, you know, what it's going to look like, and for kids in 3rd grade and 5th grade. And I can't say.
But I mean, the administration is the superintendent and the assistant super of academics is recommending phase it out.
Yeah, I hate to see it go, but if that, you know, there is the financial component too for us. So.
Okay.
I guess.
Howard?
Yeah.
If that's what administration proposes, then, you know, they're the ones running the show with the knowledge, and then I believe it should be supported. The only thing is we have to explain it properly to the community. The same way, I guess, it was brought on, we have to bring it out by explaining it properly to our community.
Okay, Paul?
Well, I think, listen, you can't fight City Hall. I would love to see it continue like a lot of us, but realistically, no. I mean, I think we phase it out. I just would like to say, you know, I need us and Caroline, probably for Laura, just to check and make sure we don't need to do it over 2 and it can just be done over 1. I'd hate to just cut a kid short, and you guys would know that from the guidance perspective. Also, instructionally, with the professional development, we don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. These people attended some great training sessions. They went and facilitated some good lessons, and that could still be carried over and utilized as Caroline and Laura think the teachers can still do it. Doesn't mean that they can't still use some of the tools that they've gained. So I think it's a win-win in all of those areas. And with the money, John and Tom are right on point with it and what everybody else is saying. You know, Claudia, I agree.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, the one thing that, no matter what our decision is here, the one thing that we are owed by administration is the plan. Okay, yeah, we can say phase it out, right? Well, what does that mean? We're going to take, and I think it has to go down to, we got this kid in whatever, Bio 1, and we're going to have to do Bio 2, but after that, that's it. And then this one has to, and then this is how we're going to phase it out, because, you know, we need to know that we're not leaving any of the kids behind. We need to make sure we committed to them this program, we committed to them a set of courses, and we can't bail out on them without finding them an alternative. I don't mean like, you know, if there's I don't know, I'm making up, but if there's a Duchess substitution for Bio 2, then, you know, maybe that's your plan for getting it to 1 year. I don't know, but I think one of the things we need to see at some point is a fair phase out, including communications. Like, how are we going to tell the public, you know, what is the, you know, the reason behind it? You know, I mean, you know, how does it affect our school, our reputation, our students? A lot of that's got to be developed. And just to stick with current thinking, we'll provide you more guidance on that later. Sorry.
What if?
Anyway, so who didn't I get? I got Paul, Howard, Jen,
John.
Claudia, John. Yep.
So I think we should feel proud that we gave a choice like this. This was it's a good program. It really is. As a matter of fact, no one will be around to hear what I'm saying in 10, 15 years, but should the population ever go up again, this is something to reconsider. It really is. I mean, with more numbers, you have more interest in it, I'm sure. So, yeah, I agree with the phase out. I was on board early with this. I did ask some tough questions about how some of the more challenged students were going to meet this rise to the occasion, and I was told, well, they'll be carried up. I'm not sure that happened. I think it was kind of a build it and they will come kind of thing, and maybe we should have done more probably surveying, or maybe trying to get seeing where the kids and the parents were on something, like maybe a better analysis, pluses minuses perhaps, which we're seeing now. But here again, like we say, the students are voting with their interest, and we also did a survey. A survey kind of also showed the same kind of response, pretty much favoring the credits of DCC and colleges. So I agree with the direction here.
So I mean, basically, I don't know if we need a motion to say this, or just, we'll finish a straw poll to make sure that our position. But I think, so I've got Howard, Paul, John, myself, and Claudia as phase out. Jen, yes, no?
Sadly.
Yeah.
I am mute.
No, you're yeah.
You're good.
And
Can I ask a quick question? Is it something that, like, say, everything that's going on in the world today, like the rumors are stating, all these people move up from Westchester or wherever, and our enrollment does go up in how many years? Is it something that can be brought out again?
I doubt it could be, you can't just okay, we're IB again,
You have to reapply.
You have to
Okay.
reapply,
It's
but you also,
okay.
you're gonna have to retrain teachers.
Okay.
I would think. Caroline, again, you're the expert.
Yeah, it's going to require a recertification validation process. By then, if any of the IB courses have changed, which they likely would have by then, we would have to have our teachers retrained. I mean, it's not something we couldn't do. It would just take a recommitment from the district and the board.
Okay.
All right, Tom? Yes,
So
no?
first, thank you, Laura and Caroline, for a nice, clear, concise decision. Yeah, I support that. And then Brian, the only thing I'm curious of the fine print copyright infringement, as we move forward after post IB, we just make sure we're not getting ourselves into any trouble where, a cease and desist order on something might be fine, but a check for a request for payment because we're using their, or copyright infringing.
Yeah.
Just let's be careful how we use the information they gave us.
And again, I think we are owed a detailed phase out plan, not just, we're going to phase it out, but how. And, you're right. I mean, we need to engage the lawyers and make sure that we're not misstepping. All right. So, I mean, the straw poll is 7-0. I don't know if we need a motion or if we should do a formal motion that just says, board authorizes the phase out, but I think you have our direction. Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Very good. And great job, Caroline.
Thank you.
I know that was a tough thing to present and bring forward. And if there are, if we need to have conversations with teachers, you need our support in those conversations with, it's not the fact that you didn't do your job. It's not the fact that we didn't teach, IB properly. It's just a matter of numbers, really, how many people we can get in the program and how long we can keep them there and the value of putting them there. Right?
Thanks, Caroline, for putting that together.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, so we go back to board docs, wherever that is. And the VMS upgrade, isn't that for executive session?
There's
Or
two
is-
pieces to that, Perry. Am I correct with that, Elliot? You're going to do a public piece to that? Yes. So Elliot's has a piece that
Okay.
he can do in public.
Okay. All right, did you want to share your screen or you want us to go to the, well, yeah, you better share your screen so anybody that's watching the stream can pipe in.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me tonight. I will share my screen in 1 second. And yes, to echo Cheryl's point, there's a big part of this that can happen in public, and then any of the details about the specific security concerns and needs will be executive session conversation. So just make sure I can get the screen share going now. Cheryl, can you enable my ability to screen share, please?
You're muted, Cheryl.
It's my family's dream. I know, Elliot.
All of our dreams, all of them.
What?
All right.
Oh, that's nice.
We share that dream, Carol.
I would never, ever say something like that.
Thank you, Perry.
Okay.
I know better.
Can everybody see what I'm looking at?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So, yeah, I was asked to go through this and provide some options for upgrading our video management system. So, just some background information on the system that we currently have. It was installed in the fall of 2013. When we're talking about system replacement or upgrades, I like to break down the components of what goes into the system. So in this case, we have the VMS software, and that's what you would interface with when you're operating in the system, what controls the system. There are 2 video management servers right now in the district. The servers connect to the cameras through a series of 7 network switches. The network switch you can think about as the director of traffic between what the camera sees and how the server processes the information. We have 88 cameras currently throughout the district. Most of these are standard definition. So what that means is I think most of us at home have a high definition TV. We hear the term 1080p or 1080i thrown around a lot. So our cameras are operating at a 480 resolution or thereabout. And there's dedicated network cabling throughout the district that obviously attaches the cameras to the switches and back to the servers. So our concerns are as follows. We're worried about image resolution, right? What's the purpose of having a camera if we can't really make sense of what we're looking at? You've seen many times on the TV, you'll see camera footage. They say security cameras caught person going into building, and it looks like blob going into blob, and you can't really make sense of it, right? We're going to talk about coverage and blind spots. We want to be able to put eyes where we need them, not just where we have them, but in areas of high activity or concern. We're going to talk about storage capacity, right? And that means how much video can we save and for how long. Having video capability doesn't really help if you only keep it for a couple days and then it's gone. Upgrade potential, right? So with every camera that fails and needs to be replaced, the resolution increases and overall capacity decreases. In very basic numbers, if our current cameras are 0.5 megapixel, the average camera that gets installed right now on the low end is about a 3 megapixel camera. So you think about you're increasing your resolution by 6 times for every camera that you replace. And with the resolution going up, the storage capacity goes down. They're inversely proportional, which means if we attempted to upgrade or add cameras to the current server array, it would severely handicap our ability to maintain and manage recorded data for longer periods of time. And we're talking about system viability and lifecycle. So for cameras and camera systems, much like most computer equipment, a lot of it falls into this category. We're looking at a 5 to 7 year life cycle. And having been put in the fall of 2013, we're just at the the undesirable far end of that spectrum, if you will. And so there's two proposals that we packaged for you to consider and discuss. The first one is to upgrade the video management system as a whole. That would include the VMS servers and the operating software being upgraded first. We would replace our 2 existing VMS servers with a 3-server setup. We would migrate the 88 cameras that we have to the new system. There's Active Directory integration and staff training. What that means is we can link it to our Windows credentials. So we can set up users the same way that our Google login is attached to our Windows login. We could also attach login to the new video management system for those that we give access to. The proposed system design, we built it out to handle 100 cameras at 5 megapixels apiece. Now, again, I said that most new cameras are going in at 3 to 4 megapixels right now, but we want to build a system that can hold up to the test of time over the next 5 to 7 years as best as possible without overspending unnecessarily. And so our system architects recommended 100 cameras at 5 megapixels. That'll allow us to add eyes where we don't currently have them and still replace every license that we currently have in play. So the cost for just that part of it is just shy of $47,000. And that is eligible for our aid through BOCES. We would be purchasing this through Duchess BOCES should the board support this upgrade. The second part of this would be to upgrade all 88 cameras, right? Because once we have the head end upgraded, then we want to do that first, but we can come in right behind it and start upgrading the cameras that we have. When we go into executive session, I will give you some very specific examples of what those cameras can look like, what they can do, and what the challenges are of our current system and what the system is not capable of doing right now. Upgrading those 88 cameras would allow us to seek reimbursement from the State Department of Education for the first $35,000, assuming no more than $2,000 per camera. That is a maximum cost allowance that is allowable under the SAFE Act, was passed about 8 years ago. It is a dollar for dollar reimbursement, so we wouldn't try to buy that through BOCES. We would buy it directly to the district. And again, the first $35,000 or cameras up to $2,000 a piece would be fully reimbursable. So the total cost of this as packaged would be approximately $250,000. Again, we wouldn't really know the exact dollar amount until we spec each camera in each of the 88 locations, including any additions that we may want to look into. But we would be looking for the board to authorize a budget and a general scope, which we would then narrow down with camera selection as we got deeper into the project. So we have a second option that just basically peels that apart and spreads it across multiple years. Year 1 would be the head end upgrade. Again, the system designers fully endorse a head end upgrade first, right? We want to take care of the brain before we take care of the body. Otherwise, the body can't do its job. And so we would do that year 1, and year 1 would be right now. We would want to spend the $47,000. We'd get our aid on it through BOCES, and then we would do a multi-year camera phase in where we would start to upgrade the 88 cameras 1 year at a time, using that reimbursement vehicle from NICED to create as close to a net zero cost impact on the district as possible. And so doing the math, we're looking at a maximum cost allowance of $2,000 per camera, $35,000 per year. It averages out to 17 and a half cameras. Again, depending on what we use, could be 15, could be 18, but we would do that across multiple years. And our goal would be to have all cameras upgraded within 6 years. That's pretty much what I get into on this second slide here. And then the other part of that is anywhere we don't have cameras where we would need cameras, we would want to install them. There are different kinds of cameras that are available to us that cover more viewing angles than we currently do with one device. So I would recommend replacing what we have before we look to add, because there may be an opportunity to avoid redundancies there. So there's some additional considerations that we just want to put on the table. We want to address the software first, and the infrastructure does not have to be touched. So the infrastructure meaning the cabling, right? We could put these new servers and these new cameras onto our existing network with the cabling and the switches that we have in play. The switches may need to be upgraded sooner than the next system upgrade, but certainly not as part of either of these two options right now. This would give us the ability to really plan for the next camera project. And I would recommend to the board that if you say, go ahead and do this in one iteration or the other right now, that as early as next year's technology plan, I would want to make sure that it's put on the radar that this is something that has to be redone in the next 5 to 7 years. And I think, Perry, you brought up when I discussed these projects as a very general sense earlier, a couple months ago, that the tech plan should be revisited every year. And I agree with that. And I would say that, this is one of those projects that as soon as you do it, you put it on the plan for redo in the next 5 to 7 years, just so it stays fresh on the mind and we don't forget about it. And the last bullet here is open source. We're recommending going with a milestone VMS system, which is an open platform system. In my experience, I've dealt with proprietary devices and that handcuffs you and your ability to expand and upgrade. And it forces your hand to do a full system upgrade when it may not be necessary. And so every device that we're looking to add to this system, as far as cameras and supporting equipment, would be open source or open platform, where it's transferable from one system to another. So here's a summary of proposals. Option 1, we do the whole system in one shot. We do the head end and then we follow right behind it with the cameras. We're looking at a total cost estimate of about $247,000 with a net expense after aid of $189,000. Option 2 is we spread it out over multiple years, doing the head end first and doing each year, doing roughly a dozen or more cameras to catch up with the replacement cycle. So we're looking at it on that option. We're looking at a total cost of $81,000 and net year one expenses after aid being just under $25,000. So I'll leave that up, I guess, as we discuss for questions and any concerns that want to be discussed now. And again, we'll do it if there's anything specific to the district's current security state or flexibility and options on this that may be of a sensitive nature, we can talk about that in executive session.
Anybody have any, like I say, we're walking a very fine line between discussing our internal security and our capabilities, both current and future, versus sort of getting an overview of what is needed, different packages of how to get it, but what is needed. So we're going to go to executive session to talk about that in a little bit. But if there's any, anything to do with these, the slides that Elliot's shown, let's put those out.
So just a general thought. So when is it, and Brian, this is more of a financial consideration. If, with the turnover and advancement in technology, is it wiser to just do an option where you're doing a certain amount every year rather than a one-time single investment that 5 years later you're again trying to keep up with? If you did a little every year, you'd be getting at least some of the latest technology in.
If I could speak to that, Tom, and then I'm sure Brian will talk to the money piece, but if I could speak to the technology piece, the challenge that we have right now is that the majority of our cameras are over 5 years old. And so if we start the phase-in option, we are accepting the fact that some of these cameras will be 9 or 10 years old before they get replaced. So it's just something that we have to be mindful of, right? So either way, we can have state-of-the-art equipment as early as this summer or next school year. And so with the state ed, with the SAFE Act reimbursement vehicle, we could replace cameras that are essentially a year or two old at a net zero expense to the taxpayer just to stay on replacement cycle. So it wouldn't preclude us from further upgrades. There may be something better next year. And we may say, all right, the stuff we bought this year is good. That's better. And we can have it for, almost nothing or relatively no expense. And that would just help us stay on the cycle. So the delayed option, while cost effective in the short term, it would age a significant portion of our equipment. And so with that, we may have unanticipated expenses due to device failure for those devices that are designated for that 4th or 5th year out.
Okay.
So Elliot, Let me,
Nothing to add.
Just, and Perry, I'm not sure if this is executive session or not, it might be, but, so I know that cameras have a certain detrimental, deterrent value. Do we have any sense of how often we go to the cameras for use?
what, yeah, I
Or is
think
that
we might,
something you want to talk about?
yeah, I think we might want to, because there's
Hold on.
specific situations where
Okay.
cameras would, if we had capabilities, so I think we'll leave that until executive session.
Fair enough.
I just, a couple logistic questions. One is, these don't come, like a video surveillance system doesn't come free. I mean, and I mean that from a person standpoint. People have to know what to do with it, when to do it, how, and it's not something they're gonna use every day or maybe every week. And so I'm curious, have you guys worked through who's gonna do all this? How they're gonna be constantly trained? Because I know that's not really your bag, but the other side is one of the things that gets overlooked on video surveillance systems in every level is maintenance. Cleaning the lenses, cleaning the bird's nests off, I mean, do we have the people and have we really worked through what the maintenance is going to cost us every year? Because I mean, we have to do it.
So Mike Ragoose has been a big part of the planning process with this, and his guys would be doing a lot of the hands-on work for that kind of stuff, right? Fixing the mount, making sure the lenses are clear, and then so this wouldn't change that in terms of what we're looking to change wouldn't affect a substantial change in the workload as far as that type of general maintenance goes. The package,
they don't really. I mean, they have jobs today.
Right,
we're talking about putting a different level of capacity. Quite honestly, when I look at some of the cameras, and again, I'll stop short of this, but I'm not thinking these were all that well taken care of.
well, and so there was a maintenance.
Might become more workload.
Agreed. And so part of the quote, so there's two things I think that you asked about, training and maintenance. So for the training piece, this the proposal that we have comes with training and licensing for 6 users, and that would be people that we would designate to be in the system all the time. And obviously credentials can be shared if there's people that are intermittent users, and we can talk more about that, the logistics of that in our exact conversation. But training is included in the package, in the $47,000 package. This is also, there's a maintenance component to the quote, and we're working with the Mid-Hudson Regional Information Center to be able to access the coaster that we currently subscribe to for our current system to support the new system, where that cost would be absorbed and there would be service and maintenance hours from the vendor directly provided through the BOCES coaster.
All right. So any other questions we want to touch here before we're going to go, I want to hear from Brian, and then we'll go into executive session to hear the rest of this proposal. You guys okay with that?
Sounds good.
All right. All right. Thanks, Elliot. And, all right. So there you go. We also, just to go over the situation with transportation, Brian. You're muted, buddy. You're muted.
Thank
You're
you.
Muted.
Yeah,
There
got it. Thank you. So I have a couple of things in my report, some of which is also a review of fund balance to give some background information before we go into executive session. And if you'd prefer to hear some of those things after executive session, that's fine, but it may give you a little bit of a context. So I'll just go by your guide. So with regard to transportation, I guess the first thing I would say is I don't know to what extent I caused some confusion. So let me give some clarity. So right now we have 5 runs that we're paying for. And those 5 runs are only the runs that are being used for the delivery of meals. So there were other items that that were discussed were simply shared with you because that's what First Student was requesting to receive. And we were in negotiations. And if we want to talk more about that, we'll also do that in executive session. But I just want to make clear, the only thing that we're paying for are the 5 runs that we are using for delivery.
So I mean, I think that's an important point, Brian, because I know there was some confusion after our discussion about, you know, how much, what percentage, all that stuff. So, and I appreciate you going, sort of showing back up this to repeat yourself, I guess.
Sure. So several meetings back, another topic, I think it was John who had asked about to look into refinancing. And I thought it was wise given the, again, new historical low rates. But my research showed that because a prepayment penalty would be so large, it wouldn't work out with the math to be able to refinance and make taxpayers spend more than they would have otherwise. So so we won't be presenting a recommendation to refinance our stuff. Any questions about that? Okay. I want to just share a little bit about our contingency budget or possible contingency budget, but our plans around a contingency budget. So you already know that if we were to have our budget defeated, we would need to cut about $560,000. We are still in the process of getting guidance about our BOCES capital project. There are many reasons why we would believe that it's a legitimate portion of the capital component of the budget and not administrative. In fact, there are many different, with our research and with our help from BOCES, there are many different reasons from an accounting standpoint why we would imagine that a capital project or a capital component expenditure would be appropriate for the BOCES capital project, and where it wouldn't just be in our administrative budget. And the reason why that's important is because it gives us additional flexibility about how we would have to deal with budget cuts. So I think Laura may have hit on this a little earlier, but there has been a bill introduced by Amy Paulin to allow for a second vote sometime in July, and that would be an in-person vote. Cheryl shared some information earlier. I don't know yet if there's a corresponding Senate bill, but certainly promising. So the weird thing, and we'd have to find out information, is that we would be in our new budget year without an approved budget, with a budget vote to happen later. So there would be an incredible amount of guidance that would have to come our way for us to figure out. I hate to use the word unprecedented, but it truly would be unprecedented in New York State and certainly in Millbrook to be in that situation. So that was just a little bit about a potential contingency budget that that I felt was important to share with you. We are going to talk about end of the year purchases, and in order to be able to talk about end of the year purchasing, we do have to talk about fund balance. And I have prepared a fund balance presentation for you. So some of you will have some familiarity with fund balance. Others can may be able to use some review. And the context of this I'll share is that, sorry, I have 2 screens, so I'm all over the place over here. The context that I'll share is that in order for you potentially to feel comfortable about giving permission to do end of the year purchasing, and cameras is indeed one of those purchases that we're asking about, you're going to probably want to be in the position of understanding fund balance to a great degree. and be able to ask whatever questions you may have. So I'm going to share my screen. In a moment. All right, we're going to do it this way.
Your next assignment is to train your boss on how to use this stuff.
Really? No, the challenge actually is that I have two screens and then the PowerPoint shows on two screens, and then I can't share with the Zoom that's on one screen. And the other thing is
so Brian wants to take a 50% cut in the number of screens he has.
There it is. You got it, Brian.
I want a third one is what I want. All right, now what do you see right now? Do you see the Windows page?
No, we see your email.
Your email.
Yeah, that's great.
Hang on. I want to do a screen capture of this before you.
All
right.
So now do you see a Sam's page?
Yes.
Excellent. It's not what I want you to see, but it's better than my email. My phone just beeped. Is one of you texting me to laugh at me?
It wasn't me, as the song goes.
All right.
Brian, nobody's laughing.
I am.
That's a lie, Claudia. Claudia, it's a lie.
With you, not at you, Brian.
All right. Are you able to see fund balance and reserves, the reintroduction?
No, we see Sam.
No?
Sam's Club.
We see Sam's, New York State Education Department, and creators of Silly Guidance.
All right, hold on. I think I may be in a situation where I'm just going to have to show you the non-presentation screen. So give me 1 second.
If it makes you feel any better, Brian, you're light years ahead of me. So
It doesn't, Jen. This is embarrassing as hell.
everyone's light years ahead of me.
You know, it just happened. My whole Zoom thing just disappeared, and I'm like talking to nobody.
We're here.
We're here, though.
We're here.
I know. I'm seeing
Can't see
nobody.
us.
We need a cheerleading session for Brian. Go, Brian.
You can email it to me.
You can do it.
I say that all the
undo.
time, John. I always say, go, Brian.
You want to email it to me, I can share it and you can talk through it. I'm here to help.
Well, that's kind of you, but when I tell you that the whole Zoom just disappeared from my screen.
So did you,
It happened to my mother too, Brian. She figured it out. I don't know what she did, but she did figure it out. Just
does she live very far from where Brian is, Tom? Maybe you can send her over.
Anybody want to stop the video? Oh, when I tell you I can't find the Zoom anywhere on these two screens. I hope you guys are getting great comic relief.
just
Sorry.
put it,
Close
go
the
into
screen
your.
and
Brian, go down to the bottom of your screen.
Yeah, I'm there.
Is it, did you just shrink it? You know,
I did shrink it so I
but
can
you,
get to
you
both.
should have a camera at the bottom of your screen.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm there,
And
and I click on
Tap
it.
on the camera.
Yeah, it's not there.
Oh,
This is
Just go to your program
That's a-
list. And
there's
start
two of
another
them.
one.
There's two camera. They're back to back. They're behind each other.
yeah. This is humiliating.
You know what it's not, Brian?
What?
It's not Red Hook situation.
Ah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the that perspective was good.
I think that's called a minimalistic cheer up.
Am I able to just leave and come back? Because I think
Yeah.
that,
Yes, you can.
Yes.
You can.
That's what I'm
Yep.
saying. Just kill it and come back.
Poor Claudia's lights, or not Claudia, Caroline's lights are going on. Brian's computer.
That's funny. I needed a really good laugh. So that was
Somebody's in a snowstorm. That must be Caroline. Oh, there she
Her
is.
lights went off again. She had
We got somebody's closet door over there. That's kind of cool.
It's Claudia.
Oh, there's Claudia.
Hello.
okay, we're going to share screen without actually presenting because that's what causes the problem. All right, can you hear me?
Yep.
What are you able to see?
Fund balance and reserves.
Yeah, so we're not.
Looks like your internet browsing history.
Yeah, that would be fine. All right, so we're not going to go into presentation mode because that seems to be what messes me up. So we'll just do it this way. So fund balance and reserves, we're going to talk about just a little bit of a reintroduction about fund balances, and thanks for your patience. So where does fund balance come from? So fund balance, we budget a certain amount of money, right? We spend it or we don't spend it. If we don't spend it and we budget it, then that's money that's left over, just like your own typical bank account. So it's money that's left over that wasn't spent but was budgeted, and money that we raised. And it also, then you take your revenues. So if we get additional revenues other than what we would have anticipated and what we would have budgeted for on the revenue side, you add those two things together, and that's what generates fund balance. There are different types of fund balance. Okay, so and it's GASB that generates that, and GASB talks about 5 different kinds of fund balance, some of which are more important to school districts than others. And there's a non-spendable, a committed, an assigned, an unassigned, and a restricted fund balance. Those are the 5 types. So non-spendable really doesn't apply to the general fund. I don't think that was me. It really doesn't apply to the general fund. It's types of things, as an example, like in the cafeteria, you talk about food as an asset, and it's part of an inventory, so that food would be an example of a non-spendable fund balance in the cafeteria fund. But we really don't have that in the general fund of the school district. There's a notion of a committed fund balance, and I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but I'll share with you that definitionally, fund balance that's committed can only be used for specific purposes, and this is the regs, pursuant to constraints imposed by the formal action of school district's highest level of decision-making authority, which is you, the Board of Education. But then the Office of the State Comptroller comes in and they have their own opinion, and they have advised that in most cases, the Board of Education would end up passing resolutions to make reserves. And that results in, by definition, an assigned fund balance. So we really don't have a committed fund balance either. An assigned fund balance is it's an amount that you would have reserved, and some examples that for a specific purpose. And some of those examples would be and the auditors allowed us to, and you decided that we knew that we were going to have mold costs couple of years ago, and we put assigned fund balance for that purpose. On a regular basis, this year more than most, but we have the tax levy assigned fund balance to reduce the tax levy. And also in this year, we have the BOCES capital project that we've assigned fund balance in a previous year to be able to offset the cost of that. And the assigned fund balance includes the reserve for encumbrances. And the reserve for encumbrances is frankly, so let's say you tonight decide that you want to give conceptual approval for us to move forward on some version of the camera project. We would be encumbering funds. We would do a requisition. We would be committing with the vendor that we were working on this, and we would start the work involved with that, and we would be encumbering funds, and the reserve for encumbrances is actually part of assigned fund balance. So over the last several years, this is where we've been with assigned fund balance. You see, in previous years, it was only money to offset the levy. That's what we used our assigned fund balance in early years. So this 928,000, this 790, this 411, this 374, that was all money to offset the levy. Then we get mold and we assign some money to deal with mold. And then in our mold issue goes away, we get a great insurance coverage, and we don't have to deal with that out of our own finances. And then in 18, 19, and 19, 20, and of course, these aren't set in 1920 because the auditors have not yet blessed the books. So we talk about that in terms of being it's projected fund balance. But this 1276 359 that you see here, the almost 3 million, that would be the levy to the board put the money in there to reduce the levy. And also we put money in there to offset the cost of the BOCES capital project. And the same is true in 1920. If you have any questions, just go ahead and stop me. So then we have the notion of the unassigned fund balance. And unassigned fund balance is the fund balance that really everybody thinks about when you talk about fund balance. It's not generally understood that fund balance includes all of this stuff. They just think about it as the 4% that we're allowed to save. So it's real property tax law, section 1318, that limits our 4% reservation of that fund balance. And that's what we call as the true rainy day fund that we have available to us. And in the best case scenario, we want to use it for one-time purchases. We never want to use our unassigned fund balance for a purchase that's going, or for an expenditure that's going to continue over time. As an example would be salary, because eventually we're going to have to find that money because the fund balance will eventually run out. And this is where we've been with the assigned fund balance, and it should be no surprise that in general we're going up. What we do is we reserve 4% of fund balance every year to be in line with law, and it's the maximum unassigned fund balance that we're able to have. Then there's this notion of restricted fund balance, and the way to think about the restricted fund balance is that they're our reserves. So I won't go through them all, but I've listed all of the reserves that we have the ability to have, and I've put an asterisk next to the ones that we currently do have. So I'll just review those, and that's the unemployment insurance reserve. We have an ERS and a TRS, retirement contribution reserve. We have a tax cert reserve. And we have an insurance reserve, and obviously our largest and probably most important reserve to us, we have a capital reserve. And this is where we've been with our restricted reserves over time. So this is the sum of all of our reserves, our total restricted fund balance over time. And as you would imagine, you would imagine that it would go up, and there was a significant amount that we were able to go up in our reserves last year, and part of that was based on what happened with the assigned fund balance and not having to deal with the mold issue anymore. So we put away an additional $1 million last year to our different reserves. So just as a refresher, so it's all of the reserves that equal the total fund balance, the non-spendable, committed, restricted, assigned, unassigned. It's not just that 4% that we generally think about. And this is just an acknowledgement of the many, of at least the three resources that I used to do tonight's presentation. And what questions might you have?
Right, just one quick one on last year's.
Yeah.
So is that basically we pulled out money out of reserves and then we just basically replaced it? I know the numbers are a little different, but. Yes
and no. So I said, and I hope I have said, you could check the recording. I hope to have said that that it was mostly attributable to the mold issue, but we would have had other money. I'm looking at you on my other screen. We would have had other money that was available to us also as a result of not spending last year's money in budget in its entirety, and whatever revenues that were unanticipated. So it wasn't solely just taking the assigned fund balance and moving it into restricted. It would have been both. So this year, we're anticipating having about, I would say, around $1 million left over in fund balance that we're going to be in a position to recommend to you and have you make a decision on what you want to do with it. So there's some version of end of the year spending that we're going to want to do, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then there will be some additional reserving that we'll do at the end of this year, noting, of course, that we have a capital project that we're able to go to about $6 million on. And this year, we have in there about $4.7 million right now, which is really exciting because as we look at our capital projects in earnest next year, and we get architects on board who are going to help us with the 5-year plan, we are already able to do at least a $5 million capital project at no cost to our taxpayers. So we're gonna be in a really good place, and that'll be exciting. And hopefully interest rates are competitive for us. All right. At this point, I am going to stop my screen share. All right, so we have some end of the year purchases that I'd like to discuss with you. So one of the things that Mike Ragusa is seeking to do is we're right now looking at replacing some sink fixtures. And the reason why we're looking at replacing some sink fixtures is wherever this COVID issue goes, we're going to be in a situation where we're going to want to limit touching of surfaces as much as we can. So what we're proposing to do, and it'll be about a $10,000 sticker item, is we're looking to try to get, you'll go into a bathroom faucet and at a restaurant, and you'll put your hands under it, and it's all automated, and we're trying to make as many touchless systems as possible. So we're looking at replacing sink fixtures in each staff bathroom and at least one sink in every common, and I'm saying sink, and what I really mean to say is faucet, in every common bathroom and locker room across the district. And Mike has looked into that. That'll be an approximate $10,000 expenditure, but we think that that's important. We have a cafeteria fund that continuously loses money.
Ryan, can I interrupt you for a second? Does the faucet also include the soap? Because if you do one, you got to do the other.
Yeah, no, it doesn't include the soap. That's just, if we're looking at it being incremental about it, that just includes the faucet. But if the board is willing to expend more to look at the touchless soap dispensers, then we would be very pleased about that. So thanks for raising it.
In the bathrooms, is it paper towels or is it the air dryers in the bathroom?
No,
I'm just curious.
Yep, they're paper towels, but they're the paper towels that you pull it and
Okay.
it's the next amount comes out, so only one person is touching it.
Right.
Yep. Thanks, Claudia. Our cafeteria fund, you know where we are as a small school district. It's very difficult. We also have a situation where many people, frankly, just are not paying the amount that they owe, and we have, based on new regulation, we have very little that we're able to do about that. So if anybody chooses, to not repay their debts, we are kind of hamstrung about that. We're anticipating a loss of about $60,000, and we would eventually, the comptroller would say, listen, you're going to, and our auditors also, frankly, it's been a note on our end of the year financials for quite some time, and they would just keep recommending that we chop into that loss. So we're actually recommending that we provide you with a resolution at the next board meeting to do an interfund transfer to the cafeteria fund, and just mitigate that loss, or I should say clear out that loss as in the immediate, because we have the money.
Hey, Brian, question.
Yeah.
How much of the $60,000 debt is due to non-payments?
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that, but I can find out.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it may actually be true that 60,000, depending on whether or not, I'm guessing it's true that in the accounting of that, it would be much more if we took into account what we haven't received, because it's on the books as a receivable, so it hasn't been written off yet. So it's probably even greater than that, but I'll find out.
Well, and how much does the recent, last couple months, our program of, basically feeding for free, how much of that has gone into this, or is that even counted yet?
It's hard because we haven't, a big part of that is the revenue piece, right? So, and that's the reimbursables that we get back from the state, based on the federal program, and they're not all in yet. So I don't have a good answer for you about how much is attributable. The one thing that would be true is we wouldn't be getting any additional money from anybody else who was here, right? The only revenue that we're getting is from state and federal aid.
Brian, who sends out the request for the collection?
I'm sorry?
Who sends out the request for the collection of these monies?
Holly does.
And how is that sent out?
It's a letter and oftentimes a phone call follow-up.
All right, thank you.
Yep. And it's actually been ruled that we are not even permitted to go to a collection agency if we want to.
Oh, I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Brian, do we have credit cards on file for lunch payments? Isn't that how it's supposed to be? There's no cash or no accounts? How is that?
No, so we don't have them on file. If they choose to use the My School Lunch app,
Yeah, that's
then
what
they do that, and then they have it. But we do not. That's a relationship that they parents and guardians have with the company, not with the school district. So it's not like we would never be in a position that the school district would be able to just charge a credit card without authorization.
No,
And in
no, I understand that. But so if you don't have money, like if Ivan went to school and I didn't give him money, he could just charge on the account and then he could just keep charging and charging and charging. Oh, shoot. Okay.
So
Yeah, I mean,
we are not allowed to, and we wouldn't want to, but we're also not allowed to refuse a lunch to a child. In the past, we used to make it a situation where we would hope to make it some version of a deterrent. Maybe you were only able to get a cheese sandwich, you were only able to get a peanut butter and jelly sandwich because, there was a difference between those who can afford it, because if you can afford it, then you're on. If you can't afford it, then you get free and reduced lunch, right? And that's what we would encourage to happen. So some of it is just by virtue of the fact that parents aren't sending money in because it's not on their radar, and typically it would have been in the past where the kid goes, "Ma, I don't want peanut butter and jelly. Can you give me my money?" And they'll remember. So it was an incentive to remember. But now it's being viewed as lunch shaming. So we're being told, and the regulation is we need to provide a regular meal.
it just feels like, I mean, as long as I've been on the board, we've been talking about this. And it's like every year, oh, there's, 45 grand we need to slide over to the school lunch program. It just feels like this is just unsustainable. I mean, do other districts do something different? Are we seeing, are we like, seeing minimal numbers and they're seeing millions? Or I hate that every year we seem to go, well, we almost made it. It's one of the few things that we just sort of go, well, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, what are other districts doing that, and are they any more successful than we are?
Some are, but most of my colleagues that I speak to, their cafeteria program is also in the red. That's most of the time. That's what I'm seeing in conversations around the table. Particularly.
So can we find some of these others that aren't, and say, what are you doing?
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe they can come in, and I don't know how that works, but maybe they could come present it to the board, or do one of these sessions with the board to just give us, are there other options besides, running this unknown debt until the end of the year and then just trying to find a way to pay it off?
Yeah. So there are a lot of things that's attributable to. So one of them is the rise of the minimum wage. So in the past 2 years, minimum wage has gone from $11.10 to it's going to 11. It's now at $11.80. It's going to $12.50. So the percentages of increase on our payroll, it has been pretty extraordinary, and that's only going to continue. I don't know to what degree. I don't know incrementally when we're going to be. The governor is going to be saying for our area, we have to get to $15 eventually, but that's taken a very large toll on us. So between that and the charges, and it's not excuse making, it's just keeping it real and knowing and what it is. That's been a big problem for us. And when people don't pay, and we're giving stuff away. That's another problem. All things that other school districts are dealing with as well. And Holly she's got a lot of experience, and she had a lot of great ideas. And the catering the catering budget that she's created, or I should say the revenues that she's brought in from catering, has been pretty impressive compared to where we've been. And she's brought on staff lunches. to a very significant degree. And we're a little bit of a victim of a small, and here's the other thing, frankly, our community came out pretty strong and said, listen, we want to be able to have 4 schools. We appreciate that being able to have 4 schools. We want to continue to have 4 schools, and the Board of Education heeded that, and we stopped any further discussion on closing any schools. But the but about that is, even in the cafeteria program, we have 4 staffs. Most places with 900 kids are not going to have 4 staffs. So it's an efficiency we can't gain because we have 4 buildings, and that's a contributing factor too. And again, not excuse making, but it's a reason. So I think, Perry, you're spot on. I think the continued exploration of anything that we can and learning about what other places are doing that are effective, we should absolutely continue to do that, and we're committing to do that. Anything else on cafeteria?
Just on the sink thing.
Yeah.
So you still got to at least grab the bathroom door once, a stall once, maybe a toilet seat, maybe a toilet lever. The scope seems like maybe hand sanitizer would be a better investment
than soap,
than a sink, because it's only, you still got to touch a bunch of things, which seems counterproductive to, you've got 6 things you got to touch, and we solved the problem with one of them. So if we bought hand sanitizer, we solved the problem with all of them.
Yeah. So we have them. We have those dispensers. We're going to have more, but I don't. It's hard. Point well taken, Tom. And I guess the only thing I would say is the last thing that you do when you leave the bathroom is you wash your hands. I don't know as though we would ever be encouraging of kids to stop washing their hands in favor of only using hand sanitizer.
But they could still wash their hands. And the last thing you do after you exit the bathroom is put hand sanitizer on. First thing you do before you enter the bathroom is put hand sanitizer on.
My understanding is soap is more effective than hand sanitizer.
I think when the kids start back in school, anyway, I think there's going to be so much guidance between the CDC and New York State and all that, and what they're going to do. They're probably going to require hand sanitizers, machines or something outside the classrooms before they go in. I mean, I think there's going to be so many changes when school starts. Just my thought.
That brings up an interesting point.
I agree.
Do we expect that to happen, where we should just wait and see what kind of requirements come about?
I would, because they change so often. And again,
but you need to commit the money now, though, right, Brian?
Yeah, we would be looking to do it in this year's budget. So who knows when they come out with the guidance. So the expenditure, the getting into contract would have to happen before June 30.
So Brian, when we encumber money like that, we have to have a specific purpose and a specific items. Is that the way it works? You can't say, we know we're going to buy something in August. Here's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because what we would do on an encumbrance basis, we would actually put the requisition into the computer, and we would actually issue the vendor a purchase order, which is our promise to pay. And so it would be for an exact purpose in this instance.
That's the only way encumbrances are allowed like that. Okay.
Well, I would make sure there's wet wipe stuff, cleaning stuff for the classrooms for the teachers when we go back, because they're going to make everybody do that. Between hand sanitizers and Lysol wipes and stuff like that. I mean, I think that's where the money's got to go, because they're going to make.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like doing the sinks is sort of like, as Tom said, it's one tiny piece of the whole thing. I don't know. Personally, I think it's just sort of taking a swing at it.
Yeah, you're right. Listen, we're trying to be as proactive as we can, knowing as little as we do, and just trying to be effective with suggestions and thoughts around what we would want to do, and probably what we want to do in any case, to have at least one of them that in each bathroom that's a non-touch surface it's one step. That's
So if we go back to school in the fall, I mean, again, this is all unknown. Are we as a school district are going to be the ones that are going to have to supply the face masks for the kids? Or is that something that the kids, it's going to be mandatory that they have themselves? So if that's the case, if we have to supply them, then we have to budget for masks and make sure we have enough for these kids.
Yeah, so it's not about budgeting anymore because the budget's done. But you're right. You're right. We have to think about the fact that we need to purchase them. Mike has purchased already about 3,000 masks, and we have about 400. So about 3,000 of these, and we have about 400 of these already, and we've found a vendor that is selling these at 55 cents a piece, and that's the cheapest by far that we've found. What I would imagine we would do is be prepared to provide, and listen, this is all without guidance, so this could mean absolutely nothing, but what I would imagine we would be doing is we would be in a situation where we would be putting masks on a supply list. As an example, you bring pencils, you bring pens, you bring masks, and for those kids who don't do it or can't do it, then we provide them. And that's where I'm imagining we would go, unless told otherwise. But right now, I'd say we have about, I think, not about, we have 3,000 that were masks that were purchased.
Any other questions?
So we talked about the cafeteria fund. We talked about the sinks, and we're still going to need some definitive marching orders about that if you're good with that. And maybe we'll come back and talk about security cameras at the end of executive session, so you have a better feel for what may or may not be needed. And listen, just for my own part, I want to thank Elliot for his comprehensive presentation thus far already. He came in with some marching orders that this is a safety issue that we really wanted to be able to focus on. We heard from several different board members individually, or at least a couple, and then the board as a whole, that this is something that we really want to be able to look at. And he took it and just went with it and did an awful lot of research and involved those whom he needed to. And Elliot just does a real stand-up job.
So going down through the board members, this sync thing, yes, no. Tom?
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't think it's that effective, and I can't see teenagers, and certainly most kids scrubbing their hands for 20 seconds anyway.
Claudia?
No.
John?
Ambivalent.
It's Howard?
No.
Jen?
I have a quick question.
That wasn't the question.
I know, but I have to ask for it. With like the current sinks, is there ever any like damage? Because kids, like with the faucets, could that be like an added plus that this might make them last longer, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Listen, our faucets are old. They need to be replaced. They're the kind of faucets that, and so I appreciate you're asking about the functionality, and perhaps it was something I should have brought up. But what happens is now you push down on it, and eventually it comes up, and then it stops. And then if you're still washing your hands, you got to push down on it again, and it takes a lot of wear and tear, and you're touching the surfaces. It's ineffective, and frankly, it's a little bit of a pain in the bum to wash your hands. Effective, you feel like you're washing your hands, and then you're touching the surface again to push it right in the middle. So yeah, it's functionally they're old. They're old faucets that get replaced.
So I just like if we had a list of, is it cameras, cafeteria fund, faucets? I do think they're a great idea. I think we could save on wear and tear and stuff, but I might personally, if it were that or the security cameras, I might go with the cameras first. So my answer really would depend on, like, you know, paying off the cafeteria fund is a huge thing too, but the sink could be a pretty important thing, especially if they're getting old. So
Yeah, thanks. And just to bring it back, we're anticipating right now having about $1 million
Okay.
left over that you're going to be either purchasing
Yeah.
stuff with or reserving.
Okay.
yeah, I think I would
Paul?
say yes.
Yeah, I like the idea. I think it's penny wise and dollar foolish. We're gonna go back into a flu season, and this could reoccur at whatever point that may happen. I just disagree with the people that don't want to do it. Just say it flat out. I just think we should do it.
Okay. And honestly, I don't think we should do it. I mean, I think a good plan for how to make a bathroom that is, I mean, these sensor-based faucets, they work great for a while. Then next thing you know, they're coming on their own. I mean, and it just feels like it's we should be figuring out how to design a bathroom that, self-maintains itself or something. But just putting in sort of motion-driven sinks, I just don't see where it does anything. So I think that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can't be. Who did I count?
Let me ask a question, Brian. Safety companies, we had Alteris. I know we phased out with them. We got Guglieri from BOCES. I'd like to know what their recommendations would be too, beside the CDC recommendations. And also with the cameras as well, what their view is on certain cameras where, and that'll be a part, I guess, for executive session. But I think the safety people should weigh in on that too.
So I think the faucet piece is a no.
Okay.
The cafeteria payoff, I don't know what the right way to say it is, but the cafeteria
Bailout.
Yeah. We'll start with Paul.
Like I said, I'm a little frustrated like you are, Perry. Every year we're talking about the same thing. I don't know. It's nice to be at zero with that, but I would just like to maybe revisit it if we can. If we can't wait, I'd say yes, let's do it. But to see what other places have done with it would be a good option. I don't know if we can wait on it, but you guys
next
need.
Meeting.
Yeah.
Next meeting, we could wait. You could wait.
Okay.
On that.
All right. I'm good with waiting until next meeting on it. Yeah.
Waiting next meeting in favor of what and getting what information? I didn't hear. I'm sorry.
Getting on the information what Perry had asked for earlier about some other districts, like how do they handle it or how do they deal with it,
Yeah.
You said there were some districts that were better than others.
Yeah.
Let's get one of the better ones and zoom them in.
Well, understand that's not going to change the debt though. So even if we have information, we're still going to have to wipe the debt clean or have it on our audit report or what the debt will still be there. And frankly, I'm just going to be honest with you and tell you, I don't know as though anybody in the next week is going to have time to be getting information from other school districts. It's just a challenge. We're grinding here and that.
I'd still like to push it off to the next meeting. There's no giant rush. We got one more meeting and we can say yay or nay then.
Okay.
I'd like time to think about it.
I think Victor was asked a question at the audit committee, and he mentioned that there were a few districts that were able to cover the costs, and I believe he said that the common theme was that they hired it out. So I mean, I think we've tried different things for years and years here, and to no avail. So I think if you're gonna seriously look at something, you're really going to have to start anew and look at a totally different approach. I don't think we're going to be able to tweak things and turn it profitable. And maybe it's not even it's something you just got to accept as you're going to have to subsidize it. too. But I know Victor mentioned that the ones that were doing it without having to subsidize it were predominantly going with the outside vendor.
Let's see, where were they? John?
I don't recall. What was the total number we're talking about here?
60 grand.
60,000.
But that's multi-year, 60,000, or it's just 1 year?
That's 1 year. That's what we're anticipating. It may be less, but
Wasn't there other debt from past years?
yes. That's I'm sorry, John. That's where we are right now with the money that was lost. I misunderstood you. I'm sorry. Yes. And this year, I believe it was an additional 35 that we were looking at.
Okay, so it was
25
60 as of last, 60 as of the.
25 from previous years and 35 from this year.
Okay. Yeah,
But you don't
And
have
how
the
does
exact
it?
figure.
How does the 25 still exist?
Because we didn't wipe it out at the end of the year like we're trying to do now.
So that so we've let it build up, and Howard, go ahead.
Yeah, if you don't have the exact figure handy, and you really shouldn't move forward and just say, okay, let's vote on something we don't have an exact number for of moving funds from one place to another to pay off a bill that you don't have the total on.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. The issue is that it's an impossibility to understand at this moment because we're still ordering food to be able to, and paying for food to be able to share with the kids and get that out. So we're still paying salaries because it's not June 30th yet. And we're also we probably only received reimbursement from the state on the revenue side since March, maybe April. So we still have May and June. So the accounting of that is impossible to understand until it happens because it's just not there. So you can't come up with, that's why I say it's an estimated 60 grand. That's the best projection we can give you until the state does indeed send us our check, until after the very last check that we cut to our vendor.
So it could be
I would
50
suggest
grand or it could be 70 grand. You
The
don't
best
know.
the best projection, Howard, I got for you is 60. That's that's
Sorry,
the
John,
calculation
go
we
ahead.
did.
May I suggest we just talk about the debt we were sure of, which is as of last year, and then this debt for this year goes forward to next year.
Oh, except that sure could have a tight budget and gives you a chance to pay that off now while you got some money, and next year you may not. But you have enough uncertainty in the next year. You're going to pay it off. I mean, we owe the money. I think it's right.
Well, then we can't close it out until July or August.
I know, but I mean, the decision whether to pay it or not, I think we're going to pay it, right? Ultimately, we can go back and forth, but we owe the money.
This was an opportunity to be proactive if you want to be. The auditors are going to tell you you're going to have to pay it, and you're going to pay it, or it'll just continue to be a note on the financial statement.
We had some years where it mounted up to over $100,000 across
Right.
years. I understand. You don't have to pay it down every year. You don't have to.
I think there's really two things. I agree with Don. We have this debt in front of us. We're gonna have to pay it at some point, some way. But do we have to keep doing this every year? You know, the fact we walked into this year with 25 grand in debt, and then we're adding on another 35 grand in debt. And then if we don't pay it, we'll add another 45 grand next year. There's gotta be a better way to do this than just blowing this budget every year. And I don't know if it's experience. I don't know if it's, we got to find a new model. I don't know what the answer is, but we just can't keep doing this every year.
Well, one thing I've asked for, and I think it's a year and a half now, I've asked for some presentations on this and see where we are. I think the board needs to have an annual presentation about this and to focus on it and see we're doing the best we can about it.
John, just so you know, I appreciate that, and you asked for it, and we were prepared to do it in October, and we kept being told that we don't have time to do that presentation, and
Yeah.
And the only reason why I share that is because I want you to know that we heard you loud and clear. And
Yeah. I would say to leadership, please put it on the table when it's possible.
So Brian, you mentioned some hurdles that, so for example, minimum wage increasing. If we're trying to keep lunch prices down and our labor costs are going up, obviously, there's a problem that you're going to have to address.
Yeah.
But we don't have any way of forecasting, hey, we expect a $25,000 loss this year, and these are the reasons why over the year before?
Sure. Yeah, so the answer to that is yes. And when budgets are tight, in one way of additionally getting ahead of this is doing your interfund transfer and at the beginning of the year and budgeting it there. So we do have an interfund transfer in the budget, but we reduced it to $35,000. It was at $55,000. We weren't able to raise it again this year. And so if we do it that way, you're doing it on the front end, and it doesn't feel like you're getting clobbered year after year. It's just it's an understanding that we haven't given up on best practices. We haven't given up on research, but it's an understanding, and you budget for it at the beginning of the year.
Right, but what I'm saying is that 55 or 60,000. Can you sit down and make a list? This is why we run over it. Labor increased by this much this year, and be able to forecast that out rather than come the end of the year. It looks like we're going to be this much. I mean, you should be able to break that data down and be able to say this is why we're going to our cost overruns. Like you said, we're running 4 cafeterias. That alone could attribute for a large expense, but do you have the numbers that really shows what drives you over the top?
The answer is yes.
But those 4 buildings are not surprises. That's like saying, well, I burn a lot of fuel because I own 4 houses. So let's blame the fact that I burn a lot of fuel oil and the fact that, I have 4 houses and I should have 3.
Yeah,
I know that every year at the beginning that we have 4 buildings that we have. We know how many students we have. Maybe the answer is to pay this thing down or pay it off, and then to set a target that becomes part of a performance profile for Holly and whoever that says, don't, if you come back in here with, 25 grand down, you at the last minute looking for money, it's going to go, yeah, we'll have to pay it, but it's part of your performance. Or maybe it's part of a district goal that we measure every month to say, where are we? Are we $500 down? We're $600 down? Are we up? Because it just feels like every year we have this same conversation, and we're never able to do anything about it.
Hey, Perry, I appreciate what you said about knowing that it's coming down the road, and if you know you have 4 buildings, you have 4 buildings, and I get that. But I guess if you're going to try to compare us to other school districts that aren't in the same situation as us, where you have a ratio of student to building as low as that's where the problem is. Yes, we can anticipate it, but if you're going to compare us to other school districts that don't have that problem, I'm not
looking to say, oh, this school district came within 2%. This one came, actually ran a profit. I want to know, how are they doing it
Best
differently?
That's
and we know
a different question.
4
And that's an
buildings, we
important
know
one.
the kids, we know most of the variables. The only thing it sounds like we don't know is who's going to pay and who's not. The minimum wage, all right, it went up, but in the scheme of things, to drop $25,000 on or $35,000 in a year as a loss to the lunch program doesn't, that doesn't add up to me. So I think we ought to really consider, whether we pay this or not. I'll leave that to the vote of the board, but I think we got to consider a different approach that puts a little more onus on making sure this doesn't happen every year. So I don't know even where we left
If
off.
I may say one thing, Perry, Brian did say there's a lot of factors. The other factor too is you can cut costs by taking the quality right down the drain too. Yeah, that's a way to save money. So.
But I'm assuming we're budgeting for a certain level of quality, right? We have a budget at the beginning of the year that says we're going to feed our kids this way. We know this many kids. We know this many buildings. We know the cafeteria staff. Maybe we don't know $1 an hour, difference here or there, but we know everything we're talking about is stuff that we know and we've committed at the beginning of the year. We don't walk in mid-year and say, here's the deal. I want to start serving filet mignon on Thursdays because I think it would be great. We have a plan for lunches, and it sounds like the only things that really affect that are who pays and who doesn't pay. And maybe that's part of our problem.
Well, the plans, last presentation, I recall that there were different plans about trying to make the quality better, salads and things like that, and see how folks reacted to it. So, it's sometimes there's things in motion. They try out things and see how it goes. So that's part of the equation. But we didn't.
And then it always comes down. And then it always comes down, John, to the recommendations or requirements, that were basically mandated to. Correct, Brian? On that with the food?
Some of it, I think. Yeah.
USDA. I mean, they limit us too, right?
I mean, they don't require you to use quality salad, so.
Yeah, but you know what? But these are all knowns, so you should be able to sit there and say, "This is where I'm taking my loss. This is what's driven the cost this year." You should be able to, and like I said, if you're going to try something, you say, "All right, we tried this program. It cost us $5,000. We lost $4,000 on it."
Yeah, you should be able to say driver.
But we also should not be in the middle of the year going, let's try a salad program. We should walk into our fiscal year saying, here's what we're going to do this year. We're going to try out a salad program. We know how much it costs. So no big surprises. It's not going to cause an overage unless they don't pay for it, or we throw half the salad out because nobody eats it.
Or they don't buy it.
Right. I mean, but we know those other things. I think we just need to find a better way to do this. So do we pay this or not?
I say we pay.
John?
Yes.
I sort of with Howard, I think I don't mind paying what we know, but I don't want to just, I don't know. I think we should know the amount.
So that's the 20, so pay the 25?
The 25 from last year, right?
I think that's what I
understood. Yeah.
That's going to be an approximate.
Last year, we don't know the debt?
We absolutely know. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Okay, fine. That's fine.
That's absolutely known.
Is this coming out of the fund balance, Brian?
That was the suggestion, yes.
Yeah. The other thing I want to just say quickly, I know, John, you wanted to say something, but would it be wise of us to go over the fund balance usage proposals, like with a regular budget passing in a contingency budget, have both scenarios so things could be weighed out? I don't know. I think we're all over the place. I don't know. Would it be easier for you, Brian, to do that? Say, okay, with our regular budget and things go well, here's what, some of the things that I think we should get to and do. And then we have some conversation about it. I just think we're all over the place between fuel and all these different conversations, I don't know. I think it could be framed out better, from all of us, not from you only, but does that make sense or no?
No, I appreciate the thought. I guess what I would say is the whether or not we go to a contingent budget is not going to have any bearing on what's left in fund balance this year.
Okay. But we'll have a bearing on how we use it and prioritize.
I think, Paul, that's what Brian's gone through, is he's recommending we pay off the cafeteria, put $10K towards sinks. We're going to have some more discussion about the, this security, the video surveillance system. We'll have, I think that's what Brian's going through, is what he recommends we do as far as transferring. Is that right, Brian?
That's correct.
So it's already,
So,
okay. Irregardless of either way, either way.
yeah,
whether
yeah.
we're
I
on
mean, this
regular
is this
situation
year.
or-
This is this year's money, so, you know, and I think we said no to the sinks. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, do we pay the cafeteria? Do we pay off last year's, until we know more about this year? Or do we just hang on to this year and then have this whole conversation all over again next year?
Well, if we paid the whole thing off and at least had the meetings that we were supposed to have this year, that for, you know, the reasons they weren't allowed to present, maybe we could have had some more dialogue about it, but that
They
might help.
weren't allowed to present because originally Holly was scheduled. She
I
was
understand.
sick, and then she was
I
sick
know.
again, and then other things came up like Phil's retirement, and it went off the screen.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
just be a little careful about, you know, discussion.
But do understand that I charged Holly with presenting based on the board request, and she was absolutely prepared to do it on a couple of different months basis. So just I just want you to make sure that you know that. I did go back in the records, and it's 25,260, which is the loss from last year. And right now, we are at a total of $45,000 in the negative, and just anticipating, and that's as of April. We're anticipating May and June maybe losing 7,500 each month. That's just in the worst case scenario, and getting to 60,000. That's where that comes from.
So Brian, this is just kids not paying lunch food? This is
No.
nothing else? This is just kids not paying their lunches?
No. Well, in this year, which it really, you know, it's silly to talk about it in a COVID year, right? But in this year, we're not getting any revenues, right? Obviously, we're not making the
Right, no, I
expenditure
understand this year,
expenditures.
but last year, sorry, last year.
Yeah. No, and last year, it's not, it wouldn't be correct to just speak of it in terms of that all that money is due to people not paying. No,
Oh.
that's not,
Okay.
that's spending more than we're bringing in. That's strictly what that is, whether it be on salary, whether it be on supplies and materials and food, and that it's more than all of our reimbursements that we get from state and the feds, and whatever we're collecting from kids.
Okay, so
How much do we pay on, I know that this is going down a different road right now, but I'm sorry, but how much do we pay on plastic utensils in the school?
Claudia, I can't get that granular right now, but I'm happy to share that with you. At the high school level, thanks to the environmental club, we do not do plastic anymore.
Okay. High school, you're not, great, okay, good.
Yep.
so let's just do the question. Do we pay the 25 from last year, 25 to whatever it was from last year, and then look to see what this year's number is, as well as, you know, we'll get Holly on the agenda for, you know, for the next meeting or the meeting after that in July, and we'll go through this presentation, and let's look at how are we going to stop this, if we can. So do we have Claudia pay the 25, or yes or no?
No, you have to pay the 25. You got to pay something. You can't let it
Okay.
stay.
John?
Yes, 25, and we'll
Tom?
deal with this year and next year.
Tom, you okay with that?
I'm good with the 25. I would say pay up to, I would cap it at 60 myself. Just to free up, because just to get it off the books and not being expensive and paid on it.
Howard, pay the 25?
Yes, I'd pay the 25.
Paul?
So I'd say pay at least the 25, if not the whole thing.
All right, we'll come back to the whole thing. Pay the 25, John?
Yes, pay 25.
I would vote to pay
I'll come back.
the whole, okay,
So,
then yes.
All right, so we've got and I'd say yes to the 25. So we've got the 25. Let's talk about the rest of it, the 45. Jen?
I have one quick question. Would we know by the time we had to make this decision, what the exact, you know, how we might take in, Brent, I'm sorry, I forgot if you said like another 65 or 7,500. Instead of just saying the 45, can we say that we would pay the exact amount that we know of by the date that we need to give this decision?
So we need to give the decision tonight, I think, or at
Oh,
least.
is it tonight? Okay, then I would
Or
say
at
let's
least
pay.
by the end of June.
So there will be, depending on where you go with your straw poll now, there will be a resolution, because a resolution would be required for the interfund transfer. So there'll be a resolution at the next board meeting for whatever it is that you decide tonight.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So how about I say pay the rest?
Yeah, I
John?
say yes.
Yes.
I say yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Howard?
No, not without any kind of ideas on what figures, you're not giving blank checks.
Okay.
What's the question? Because you broke up, Perry. What was the specific question?
Do we pay the rest?
No.
Okay. John?
At a principle, we should know what we're authorizing. So I say no.
So we got 1, 2, 1, 2, we got 1, 2, 3. Tom?
I would say, yes, pay it.
Pay the rest.
It should be documented.
Good. I always appreciate when you guys do this. Make it 3-3. I would say pay the rest with the condition that we see an accurate set of reporting on what caused it, a real plan on how we're not going to do this again. If we can't do that, then we pay the 25.
Well, we can't do that. So I'd recommend paying the 25.
Why can't you do that?
Because there's no way to be able to share with you a way that we're going to avoid being in the same situation. Because we're a small school district, and we have a school lunch manager that is working very, very hard, and we can work on professional development, and we can work on going out to school districts and see what they're doing. But I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that we're going to be able to bring this into the black when I know how hard they're working down there.
All right, then my vote's to pay the 25. But I'll be honest with you, you know, if you did this in the public sector, it just, I mean, and you just every year you come back and go, oops, I didn't know, you know, it wouldn't fly at all.
If it's unsustainable, Perry, in year 1, it's going to be unsustainable in year 4, you know.
Well, then we need a plan to fix it.
And if
not
there can't
just
be
a
a plan,
plan.
I hate to say it, but I'd be willing to look at privatization on it, on contracting out. If you can't come up, if you stand there and say you cannot possibly come up with some way to cut the cost.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to come in, you know, $1,000, or, you know, it's one thing to come in, you know, even $5,000, but to come into the year with 25 grand in debt, and then during this year throw another 45 on top of it, that's not just, you know, oops, we forgot about the, you know, that's a program. What's the total budget for that? For a yearly budget for cafeteria services?
I'm going to say it's about, I don't know off the top of my head, Perry, to an exact, but I'm going to say it's about 440,000.
Okay, so I mean, you know, 60,000 or 45,000, we're 10% off. I mean, that's a huge number. So I say we approve the 25, and then you know, we see a plan. I mean, you're not going to be able to, I know you're not going to be able to come in and say, oh, hey, I figured it all out over the weekend. Here's how we're going to come in with net zero. But we've got to take some actions to try to resolve this. We owe it to ourselves, we owe it to the taxpayers to basically say, you know, yeah, this has happened quite a few years in a row, but we're gonna get there. We're gonna improve the situation. Right now, we're just sort of, I feel like, winging it, you know, and that's, I know that's too strong, but you know, we're sort of going, we're hoping for the best.
I appreciate needing to, you know, work on continuous improvement. I get it, but I promise you that, you know, we had a cafeteria consultant come in. Those of you who are longstanding members of the board, you'll remember, and Holly worked those recommendations that person brought in, and it wasn't, and it's certainly not for a lack of trying, and we're not giving up either. Every time I meet with her and review her profit loss statement, it's always the same answer. We're going to get this, and we're going to get better, and we're going to do this, so it's not for a lack of trying.
Maybe, you know, sometimes the board needs to step in and say, then come show us every month. And, you know, take your lumps every month until you start to figure out these things. Now, you know, if every month it's a completely different thing that's never been seen before, but eventually you got to say, you know, oh yeah, I mean, peaches went up, I guess, or, you know, I don't know what goes into those decisions, but I think the board needs to start, you know, and I hate adding stuff onto the board, just like I hate adding stuff onto you guys to pull together the work. But, you know, we need to start seeing some of this, like, okay, here's an action I took, it didn't work. Here's another one I took, it worked. It looks like it's really paying off. All right, so 25, and then I guess we'll see a plan from Holly, not a plan, but a review and a plan from you guys soon. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, thank you. Brian, one more clarification point. The 45, does that include expenses after the school stopped hosting students? Or because basically
that includes
the school was open for five of 9 months.
That includes everything through April.
But they're still making lunches and
so if you prorate that for a full year, the expenses were up, you know, even higher, maybe $80,000 loss if we had the whole year going.
But you have a unique set of circumstances.
Right.
Expenses right now aren't typical.
Right.
Right. I'm saying the loss would have been higher, much higher, had we been in full operation.
Oh, so if you went to whenever for the beginning of the school year till when they had to close down? And then
we're comparing years like they're equal. They're not equal this year. This year was a fraction of a year.
That's absolutely right. We were in school 60% of the year.
And you know, the other thing too is I think the board probably wants to think about, like, we shouldn't be surprised. We should kind of know that things are going up by, you know, if it's increasing by a certain amount, we need to know sooner. You know, it's not be surprised. So that we should discuss also next time, whenever this discussion comes up again.
You mean to discuss the profit loss statement that
yeah, when I think if the loss for a certain year is like you know, 20% greater than last year, we ought to know something about it sooner than toward the end of the year. So.
Well, so like every other month until we, you know, start to make some progress. Maybe every other month we got to have, you know, have you guys come in, take us through the profit and loss, take us through the real surprises, not the, you know, minimum wage went up $1 an hour, or you know, we have 4 schools, but what happened that we weren't expecting, and some ideas about what to do about, you know what I mean, like get much more granular on this. All right. All right, do we want to, anybody have anything else, or we go to executive session, I think? Yeah, we want to go to executive session. Do we have a motion, or is there everybody good with what we just finished, or any other discussion? All right, do we have a motion to go to executive session?
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Okay.
Please hold while I make your breakout room.
You're gonna have to add a little like calming tone to that, Cheryl. Please hold.
Please hold.
Just Julie, our cruise director. You should have Love Boat music on right now.
Can't think of the Love Boat music.
Don't make me
All
sing
right, geez, Pete. Wow.
it. Love, exciting and new. Oh my God, this is being
And-
recorded.
How
Yeah,
about
It is being recorded.
a